Going.
Awesome. Well, good morning, everybody. We've got some people that are still joining. Good morning to our West Coasters, and good afternoon to our fellow East Coasters. Thanks everybody so much for joining. We're going to go ahead and get started and kick this off. Adam, if you want to flip over to just a couple of housekeeping things to go over before we get started. For the webinar, we're going to ask that you just try to stay on mute. Camera, your video is, we got somebody else joining here. Your video is absolutely welcome. Please keep your videos on if you feel comfortable, and type questions in the chat panel and we'll try our best to get to them during the Q&A. But we just kindly ask that you do stay on mute until the Q&A and share anything in the chat that you have questions on. And before we kick it off and get started, I just again want to wish our, happy Friday. Welcome. Thanks for joining us this morning. We're very excited to have you all on live with us for our June webinars. We're going to be going over an introduction to Grin today. And before we get started, I just wanted to introduce Dr. Adam Schulhof, who will be leading this morning's demo with us. And I know many of you know Dr. Schulhof, but it's my pleasure to introduce him. Dr. Adam Schulhof is the CEO and founder of Grin. He is a board-certified orthodontic specialist who runs a state-of-the-art practice, the Schulhof Center, with locations in both New York and New Jersey. Dr. Schulhof has over 17 years of experience and specializes in the use of advanced technologies and customized aesthetic treatment using aligners and lingual systems. Not only does Dr. Schulhof have a passion for utilizing cutting-edge technologies that provide aesthetic and convenient solutions for all patients' orthodontic needs, but he also has a passion for creating them too. So we are very excited to introduce to you this morning, Dr. Adam Schulhof.
Thanks, Jillian, very much. So first of all, I recognize a ton of names on here. So guys, hello. You're welcome. That's my Siri on my watch. Let's ignore Siri for a second. But it excites me when I see some of the people that I've been talking to probably for the last year or so, online or otherwise, and they're like, "What's going on with Grin? What are you guys up to? What are you guys doing?" So great to see all of you here. You know who you are, and to everybody else as well. This is going to be a very easy intro to what we've been doing, what Grin is, what Grin will be in the future, things like that. We're not going to dive too deeply. We do have another webinar coming up by Dr. Colby Gage in about 2 weeks or so that is something that I think is going to be really special, because it's not just Adam saying, "Hey, this is what we're doing in our practice," but also now we're starting to hear from other doctors how not only they're implementing some of the things and the ways that we do, but actually even growing it, right? I mean, we're all kind of this group of innovators. And when I say we, I mean orthodontists in general. And it's really exciting to see how some other orthodontists are thinking about utilizing this technology and how they're making it a big success in their practice. So we'll run through, our typical agenda. What is Grin? Why Grin? How it fits in across your practice. I think the key components are going to be that we're going to do a live demo. Jillian's going to be my patient. She's going to have the patient side app. I will then show you the doctor side app. So you will leave this webinar knowing everything you need to know to get started and to see how it could be a very good fit for your practice. Our mission always has been and always will be bringing the delivery of dentistry and orthodontics back to us, to the experts, with true innovation that benefits patients and doctors. And what I mean by that is that across my career, sometimes being somebody that's so interested in innovation, we kind of gravitate towards trying everything new. And a lot of these things were cool, but they didn't necessarily add true benefit to the practice, true benefit to the patients. And that's always been the goal with Grin. Number one, it's all about for ortho by ortho. Orthodontists treating patients, communicating, connecting, creating a journey for the patient that is unlike any other, but always truly bringing value to the patient and the doctor and to that patient and doctor relationship. And so we talk about seamless two-way communication with a care team. And what we mean by that is the ability for your patients to really be connected to your practice the way they're connected right now to the world. I mean, I don't have to go deeply into the fact that we all have our mobile devices on us and are now using it for everything, ordering food, ordering Ubers, ordering anything else. You know, if there's anything we need or want, it is at our fingertips. And the reality of our practices are we have gravitated towards using all of these really cool, innovative digital technologies within the practice, you know, intraoral scanning, aligners, custom brackets and wires, but yet the patient journey is still analog to some extent, right? The patient journey in a lot of our practices is exactly the same patient journey that's been around for the last 20 years. And it's really about time that we understand that consumers, patients, are looking for something that is a little bit more akin to what they do day in, day out in all other verticals in their life. Now, as far as, you know, the white elephant in the room, everybody knows that there are some other remote monitoring companies and devices out there. When we set out to create Grin, it was not just for remote monitoring. And some of the things that you're now going to see over the next 3, 6, 12, and beyond months of what Grin is bringing to the table for doctors and patients is going to be well beyond just remote monitoring. We exist and are on the market today as a remote monitoring company, but always differentiated by a number of factors. Many of you have already seen, many of you already have in your hands the Grin Scope. Ease of use was number one. With a lot of other remote monitoring type devices, it's tough. It's tough to train the patient. It's tough to get the patient to do it every single week if you want to for aligners or even every month. We wanted to make sure that ease of use and user experience is top notch. And so something that I can hand off to a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old even, give them a couple of minutes of instruction and they can almost just pick it up and go for it and get you as the orthodontist, as the doctor, exactly the information you need. We also want to make sure that it is the information that you need. And what I mean by that is I don't want to just give you a view of the front 6 or 8 teeth. I want to be able to give you a view all the way to the back molar. I want to give you an occlusal view. As we know, if there's a little bit of lower incisor crowding and you're looking directly from the front, you can't even see it. But if we're looking occlusally, you will be able to. I always wanted this, and this was one of the things I asked the team. I wanted this to be something that a doctor can really roll out across the practice. And what I mean by that is that we know that implementing new technology, it's tough in an orthodontic practice. We're busy. We have a team that's been doing things a certain way. And to create that implementation is a difficult thing. When you implement things like that on a one-off basis, and what I mean by that is you start picking and choosing which patients get it, which patients don't, the implementation and the process really doesn't go smoothly. In order to actually create new systems that, again, are going to benefit the patient, the practice, the team in the practice, it's got to be implemented across the board. And in order to do so, we wanted it to be the kind of thing that truly would not take a tremendously large investment. We wanted it to be the kind of thing that when an orthodontist thinks about it on a per patient basis, it's a negligible cost. And so this way, instead of every new consult, you're thinking, okay, do I start this patient on remote monitoring with Grin or do I not? Now it's negligible. And so every patient gets Grin because it's going to add value to every single patient journey in the practice. And it's going to add a ton of value to the practice. And we'll talk in a little while about some of these use cases that we've been implementing in our practice. And we're hearing now from a lot of other doctors that they've implemented as well. And then, of course, as I mentioned, ease of use across the board, not just for the patient, but for the team, for the doctor. Every step of the way, we wanted it to be something that, you know, you're here on a webinar and I'm going to show it to you, but had you just logged in and started running with it, you could potentially do it all on your own because it's just that easy. Now, as an overview to Grin, of course, we've created a little bit of a video here, and this is what we call the full Grin overview video.
In our connected and remote world, why do we still go into the orthodontist for every single routine visit? Why not go remote? With Grin, you can. Grin is a comprehensive digital orthodontic platform that provides remote monitoring solutions in partnership with trusted local orthodontists. For doctors, it's robust. Invite patients to the platform, provide them with a Grin Scope, and use the Doctor Web app to review scans, send secure HIPAA-compliant messages, customize scan frequencies, and more. For patients, it's simple. Get the Grin app and use the Grin Scope to take an orthodontist-ready self-scan of your teeth in less than 60 seconds. You'll be reminded when it's time to scan again, and you can communicate with your care team at any time. With the Grin platform, orthodontists can reduce chair time while still virtually reaching into their patient's mouth as if they were present for an in-person appointment. And patients can get a healthy smile with increased flexibility and trusted doctor oversight. Grin. Great smiles, real orthodontists.
Obviously, you saw the theme there. Great smiles, real orthodontists, right? Everything is connecting the patient specifically to the orthodontist. Now, as we went live with Grin, really at the tail end of COVID, although I don't even know when the tail end of COVID really is, but during COVID, some of you may know we had a COVID initiative. We brought a whole bunch of scopes to the market and kind of gave a lot of them out free of charge initially, just to really get it in the hands of doctors that needed it for their patients. And that's when the doctors started coming to us and saying, we want more, we want more. And so we started going live with everything that we have today. During that time, a lot of doctors also said to us, you know, we are using this for remote consultations, not just for remote monitoring. And we would love for you guys, for Grin, to really tweak a couple of points so that this can be seamless, where some of these patients who either are not ready to come into the practice yet, or I'm seeing this now, especially a lot of practices that they're so busy that the next consultation to get the patient in is beyond 2, 3, 4 weeks. They'd love to get this patient interested in communicating with the practice already. We've now implemented what we call Grin remote consultation. And we can walk through the exact journey, but let me just show you one quick video first.
You work hard to keep your practice growing. But how can you reach even more patients on their time and schedule? With Grin's remote consultation platform, use our suite of marketing tools to attract new patients to a custom landing page. When they get there, they can sign up for a free consultation with you and get a Grin kit shipped to their door. With the Grin Scope and app to guide them, they'll have everything they need to take a perfect orthodontist-ready intraoral scan. Then you can use those scans to make a custom treatment plan and talk it over with them using our in-app messaging. From anywhere and at any time. Serve your patients better. Grow your practice faster. Get Grin. Sign up now.
And so a lot of doctors have used this in very, very cool ways. And I'm sure Dr. Gage is going to go into some of the ways he uses it on the next webinar. But this is a way, and for my practice especially, this has been a way where we're starting to think a little bit differently about engaging with these patients, even before they come into the practice. And so let's kind of look across the practice, across all of the various different, what we call value propositions that Grin is going to afford for the practice. So obviously, convenience. And when we talk about convenience, we're talking about primarily from the patient's perspective. I have had some doctors that say to me, wait a minute, we're all concerned about what's been going on in the world of DTC. We don't want to put patients on autopilot. We don't want to, create a situation where patients feel like they're getting less value. This is exactly the opposite of what's been going on. Patients in my practice, when we present Grin to them, they're like, oh my goodness. So we're going to be able to come into your practice fewer times, but yet actually have more connectivity with the practice. Generally, they'll even turn to me and they'll say, how much more does that cost? And we're like, no. This is part of how we practice this. This is the new patient journey. And so reduced visits for the patient, the ability for the patient to message and communicate with the care team. I mean, we know how our front desks are sometimes completely inundated. And we know how sometimes we'll hear from patients. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but certainly in my practice, we'll hear from patients sometimes, well, I was trying to get through to you guys, but it's like impossible at the front desk. And so this gives them the ability to do so. And we'll talk in a little bit how we do things in our practice. In other words, who takes care of this on the other end? How does that flow? From an efficiency perspective, clearly we're going to be able to reduce chair time. Now, again, nothing to the extent where you're going to feel that care is interrupted in any way. But as we know, there are many situations, let's just say, for example, a patient's on class 2 elastics, and you really have nothing to do until they get that class 2 correct or the class 1 correction. you can extend the intervals in between appointments. In our practice now, we actually have extended our brackets and wires intervals to 12 weeks. We used to be at 8 weeks with aligners. And again, everybody, this is up to the individual doctor to do it at their comfort level. But with aligners for us, we hand the patient their entire set, all of this, the entire stage, and we will have the patient scan weekly. And so the patient is sending me a scan with the aligner in, with the aligner out every single week. And we're letting the patient know quickly, great, keep on moving forward. Or, ooh, you know, have you been wearing it well this week? Because we're seeing some areas where the trays are not tracking, where the trays are not fitting. Let's have you wear it X days more and then send in a new scan. Okay. And we'll, once we get into the platform, I'll show you how we can do that. You can customize how these scans, you know, the interval of scans per patient, you can change that customization on the fly, et cetera. And so we have actually severely reduced our clinical chair time in my practice. And that's opened up a lot of room for us to actually add consultation columns so that we're getting patients in at a much, much better cadence. Emergency situations or emergent situations, certainly this has helped tremendously for it. It's actually decreased the amount of times a team member has to go in over the weekend, because now the patient is sending us a photo or a video of what's happening in their mouth, and we're very easily able to talk them through being able to alleviate that problem, and then if needed, come in Monday morning, or potentially you see the video and you're like, oh, that's not an emergency, that's fine, leave it for your next appointment. You know, in totality, of course, you're seeing reduction of chair time, allowing for more patients to be coming and starting treatment with you. And from a perspective of responsibility, it actually gives us more oversight, right? We're able to detect problems before they become a problem. And so, for example, even in practices that have, I don't know, 10-week, 12-week interval for aligners, we all know if something starts non-tracking at week 6 and you're not going to see that patient until week 10 or week 12, now that non-tracking is magnified. And suddenly the patient comes in after 6 trays of not tracking, and now that's an automatic mid-course correction, right? Versus here, even though the patient is coming into your practice less frequently, you have that oversight on a weekly basis, so you can capture that non-tracking issue and alleviate it right away and have that patient continue along in treatment. From a compliance perspective with class 2 elastics, class 3 elastics, you know, any kind of elastics, right? It's been tremendous. And from a hygiene perspective, it's been even better. And I can tell you, we get mom after mom after mom praising this and saying how amazing it is and sending us other patients because we've now implemented this, because mom is now even more involved in treatment. In many of these kids' cases, the Grin app on the patient side is not existing on the patient's phone, but rather on mom's phone. So when the Grin app pings them to take a scan, mom is bringing her phone over and saying, okay, time to take a scan. And now when the doctor responds and there's a hygiene issue, well, guess what? Mom is seeing it, versus mom being out in the waiting room, not knowing what's going on in treatment. We see the patient, we bring them back out, we say, okay, wire adjustment. Oh, she really needs to brush better. Mom looks at the kid and says, you really need to brush better. And then they go home and nothing's ever done, right? Here, mom is actually seeing the video, seeing exactly where the doctor has prescribed. Look, there's all this plaque right here on this tooth. And I'll show you later in my platform how that works. And that actually is adding a ton of value to both mom and the practice itself. When we have white spot lesions at the end of treatment, we've got video, we've got text, we've got all of this string of, we've been talking about this all along. And this really applies to the entire patient life cycle. And what I mean by that is that we're now using remote consultations. We're also using it for observation, right? If we're waiting for some teeth to grow in, instead of having the patient come in every 3 or 6 months and then, oh yeah, it's not there yet, come back again, I just give them this Grin scope and say, okay, here's the cadence you're going to be on with your scan. You're going to send me a scan every 3 months. And then lo and behold, that tooth erupts, and right through the Grin app, we're like, okay, fantastic. You know, we're going to contact you to make your next appointment because you're ready to go. Active treatment, we've talked a lot about that. And then of course, retention. We no longer have in-person retention visits in my practice. A patient gets their retainers, they get all of their instructions, and now in the Grin app, we change them, let's say, from a monthly or a weekly cadence, depending if they were aligners or brackets and wires. And we change them first to a 3-month cadence. So they're going to take a scan 3 months out, so we get to see what's happening with the retainers. we have them take a scan with the retainer and without, and then I put them on a 6-month from that point. And this way they don't have to come into the practice at all, but now we get to reach through their phone into their mouth, into their bathroom, let's say, and see exactly what's happening. And if there's an issue with retention, we can nip it in the bud right away. So as far as across the practice, this really hits every team member's role. And I don't know how many team members are on this call right now, but we can also schedule a time where we'll either Zoom in and we'll talk to every team member of exactly how this is really going to be very, very helpful for each one of their roles. But you can imagine from customer acquisition, we talk about remote consultation, which is our marketing team. This has been a huge boon. We're able to literally get these consults going and get some, connectivity to the practice when somebody's just surfing and looking in your neighborhood at the various different orthos and looking at your website and feeling you out, and suddenly, ooh, would you like to get a free remote consultation? And then put in your information, download the app, and guess what? In a couple of days, you get a scope in your hand, and from home, you're taking that scan. Now, I know there's a lot of different consultation or virtual consultation tools out there. The problem with them is the fact that most of them are just pictures, right? And pictures with the cheeks in the way, the lips in the way, etc. And I know even during COVID, even my practice before, we were using Grin, we were using spoons to retract the cheeks, and you really can't see anything. So now, how good is that remote consultation when you really can't see the bite, you can't see function, and you really can't give the patient a good idea of how long treatment is going to take, how much it potentially could cost, etc. And so this is a way to truly capture all of the information you need other than a radiograph before the patient even steps through the door. Obviously, we've got a lot of collateral as well that we would be more than happy to give practices so that they can also get that word out there about all of these added benefits. From a scheduling perspective, of course, a ton of more flexibility. In general, we're going to be able to get more patients through the door. And so clinically, I talked a little bit about how my practice has changed because of so many of these clinical virtual visits. So just to kind of put it in perspective, we were 5 columns, or as we all know, 5 chairs running. Let's talk about pre-COVID. And now at this point, we're 3 clinical chairs running. And pre-COVID, we were 5 clinical chairs running, 1 consultation chair. Now we're 3 clinical chairs, 2 consultation chairs. So of course, we're able to get more new patients through the door in a much, much more timely manner. And our clinical days are a breeze because we have only 3 columns filled at this point. As far as no-shows and things like that, a lot of patients would call last minute, oh, we're not going to be able to make our appointment. Well, guess what? Grab a Grin Scan and send it into the doctor. Right? Because many times if we're in, let's say, an 014 and that wire is still cooking out, yeah, they missed their appointment today. Well, we know that when a patient misses their appointment and wants to be put in the next day or the next week, our schedules are already filled because we're on an X week cadence, right? Many times I'm able to go into that Grin Scan and say, you know what, this wire is still cooking, guys. Let's push that appointment off for 4 weeks or 6 weeks, and let's let that wire keep on cooking out. I know you couldn't make your appointment today, no problem. We were going to check on that. I just did, and it just makes the entire schedule flow a lot easier. And of course, we'll talk a little bit more about emergent situations and how we deal with those. From a case acceptance perspective, we've been seeing some really cool stuff. We now have patients that are coming to our practice because other patients have specifically talked about Grin. And so we'll have patients that have come in and say, hey, you guys have that thing with the phone, et cetera. And so it's actually converting more patients. So from a treatment coordinator's perspective, there's a lot of great things there and a lot of ways we can talk to patients about some of these values. And obviously from an assistant's perspective, my assistants are loving this because they're having easier days. We haven't run over a single day in I don't even know how long, probably 6+ months. One of the other things, you see this picture here, and this was actually a picture shot of me looking over a case with Brianna, one of my assistants. This happens very frequently where we have a case and we're like, oh, what are we doing today, right? And of course, there were notes from last visit. Okay, we went into a 1622, but we're not sure where the patient's going to be up to. Oh, excuse me for a second. That's my computer. So we're not sure exactly where a patient's going to be up to and, or what we need to set up for. Well, guess what? Now we just pull up their last Grin scan. And so, the patient hasn't been seen in 12 weeks, but guess what? Maybe 15, 20 days ago, I have a scan of what's happening in the patient's mouth. We can pull that up and at the beginning of the day, at the huddle already, if needed, or before the patient's brought to the back, the assistants know exactly what we're going to be doing on that patient. I do have doctors that will actually, when they get their Grin scan, they'll actually go into the patient's notes and write what they're seeing and what that next appointment is. And so they can pre-plan. Of course, we are looking at various different PMS integrations. I know that's a very, very big question that everybody has. So rest assured, we are looking into doing some of those kind of things. And then, of course, non-tracking, hygiene, as I spoke to, observation, retention. I mean, there's just a lot of value from the clinical perspective. So now let's get into the good stuff. So we're going to do a live demo. I'm going to actually stop sharing and turn my screen over to Jillian. Now, Jillian is going to be our patient here, and her screen will go big, and she'll show you from the patient side exactly what that app looks like, how it looks when I've pinged the patient or the app has pinged the patient to take a scan. She will physically take that scan and then kick it back over to me, and I'll show you the doctor side of that platform.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Schulhof. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and demo the patient side for everybody. Before I share my screen, which I'm going to be sharing my actual mobile device to showcase the patient app up on the screen, I'm just going to go ahead and take my Grin scope and apply it to my mobile device here. So I'm a patient of Dr. Schulhof's. I just got my notification that it's time to take my scan, and it's time to send that over to my doctor. So I'm just going to go ahead and take my Grin scope here and attach it to my phone. And you'll see here, I attached it right over the back-facing camera, and it fits nice and snug as such. There's a silicone strap here, so I can tighten that if I need to. It goes right back into place. So I've got my Grin scope attached, and I'm going to come back and share my screen and go ahead and take my scan. Okay, Dr. Schulhof, you can see my my mobile phone right up here on the screen, right?
Yeah, you're good.
Great. Okay, wonderful. So a couple of things to notate here about the app itself. It is Android and iOS compatible. So whether your patients are on Google-based, they're Apple-based, we support both. And the Grin scope fits with all devices. So I'm going to go ahead in here and come into entering my scan mode. As you'll see here, I've received my notification. I can get either push notifications, text messages, emails. I'll go into all of that after I take the scan. But you'll see here, attach the Grin scope over the phone. I've already done that. I'm walked through a series of prompts. I'm going to go ahead and hit continue and take my scan.
Start your scan from the center and bite all the way down. Move slowly all the way to the right and keep your bite closed. Now move slowly all the way to the left while keeping your bite closed. Then move back to the center. Open your mouth and capture the bottom teeth from above. Now capture the top teeth from below. Well done. Scan complete.
So you saw how easy that was to apply the actual Grin scope and then go ahead and take my scan. 34 seconds total, and that's really pretty much my virtual check-in with Dr. Schulhof. So the Grin scope itself, you saw how that perfectly, it was designed in such a way that it perfectly retracts the cheeks and then has the light from the camera reflecting to capture that perfect scan, as you saw up here. So just a couple of things to notate here on the patient side. My scan is complete. If there are any errors at any point in time, or I'm no longer capturing the scan, it will ping me. I got all of my occlusal views, my bite, everything is good. I can play this back if I want to. I'm pretty good with my scan. I'm going to upload it to my doctor. It's uploading here. I can come right to my chat and send a message. Here is my scan for this week. Let me know how things are looking. And I'm going to send this message over. And when Adam goes back to share his screen, he will pop that up. But here is the chat between doctor and patient. So I am Diane Ramirez playing the patient with Dr. Alberto Meyer. So this is what the chat would look like. Just a couple of things to call out here on the app itself. Taking the scan is very easy. I can come over here and pull up my timeline. This timeline view is great. Patients love this. This is a great feature, a great way for them to track their own progress and track their treatment. I can check out my first scan from when I started treatment back on December 9th. And I can compare it to my scan from today, June 17th. And, or I'm sorry, June 11th. My upcoming scan is June 17th. For June 11th, then view that and compare them. And really be able to track my progress and see how I'm doing. So patients really have that full visibility into their treatment and how they're doing. A couple of things in the settings. By default, when your patients download the app, you'll see here, when they're downloading it, they're already auto-enrolled for email, push, and text notifications for all kinds of either their scan reminders or any messages or scan reviews that come from the doctor. I can even change the time of day that I get reminded for my scan review. Right now, I've got mine set to 10 a.m. Maybe your patients would like it first thing in the morning when they're brushing their teeth, or at night before they go to bed and they're brushing their teeth again. So you can change those scan reminders here. And Grin, for the reminder cadence, they'll start pinging the patient 24 hours prior to the scan due date to get them ready. So what's going to happen is they're going to start receiving those notifications to go in and take their scan. And if they don't take their scan, we're going to keep sending them those reminders until they do take the scan. And that's all triggered through the Grin platform. I apologize here. I wanted to get back out to the tutorial section, but this seems to be, oh, there we go. Let's see if I can get out of back up here. Sorry. Just wanted to take back through the tutorials. I apologize. There is a section in the app for some really nice video tutorials too. So we do recommend that you onboard the patient chair side, but in the event that they go home and they forget how to, apply the Grin scope to their mobile device, or, how to take those scans and get those sent over. We do have some in-app tutorials. They can go ahead and watch a quick video and get a refresher. All right,
Great.
I'm going to get back over to Adam. And
Yep.
here we go.
Thanks. So now the scan gets sent over to the doctor's side. So this is kind of where I'm going to show you on the doctor side what the platform looks like. A lot of people ask me, is there a doctor side phone app, mobile app yet? It is not. We are developing it. Wasn't a huge priority because, to be honest, this is mobile enabled or mobile, whatever they call it. I'm not the tech guy, but I will say that between myself and my digital coordinator, very, very frequently, we're pulling this up on our phones and it works beautifully well. You're able to respond to patients and do anything you need to on your phone just with this, the web app, as they call it. And so, of course, this isn't my real account because of HIPAA. We've got to, use fake names and fake patients and things like that. And so I'm working as Dr. Alberto Meyer, and Jillian is Diane Ramirez. So Jillian is Diane Ramirez. This is her last scan. The way we'll view the scans is exactly like this. I'll pull it up really big, and you kind of just saw her taking that scan, and this is what it looks like when you're looking at it. And so we can really see around all the way to her 7s. I get to see also, I like video versus stills because I get to see function when she's opening and closing, when she's going to her occlusal, and in a lot of these cases, that's very important. Oftentimes, if a patient is just trying to take a photo, especially a still photo, they're posturing their jaw in a certain way that if this is a case where we're really considering where they're up to with class 1, 2, 3 elastics, it's not really going to give us a good idea if we're looking at midline, et cetera. And so to me, I like keeping it in video. We are working on some other cool things to automatically populate photos and things like that. And so these are all of our scans. On this side here, we have all of the chats that's been going on, right? And on the patient side, as you saw, it's really based on a chat platform. And so patients are all day long, whether it's in their DMs or in iMessage or whatever it is, they know how to use a chat platform. The only thing added to the chat platform is the button that they can either take a still picture and send it, or a button where they can take a scan. Other than that, it's very, very simple. So here's the message from Jillian from just before. Here's my scan for this week. Let me know how things are looking. I can type back, great, etc. The other thing that I can do, and this is new functionality that has come with the remote consultation, is I can also send Jillian what we call a scan review. So the same way a doctor can send a video for remote consultation, we can now send a video in response to a scan as well. And probably the best case to show that is to show, let me see if I can find which one this is, a case where, here we go, where this is a patient that was complaining about a wire poke, right? And so I sent them a scan review right here. And this is something that I kind of just, I was trying to type back and forth. I'm like, you know what, this is just going to be a lot faster if I just send it out to them.
Okay, so I did take a look at the whole video, and I know it's tough probably for Waverly to get all the way around, but what I'm seeing here is actually a pretty normal cinch. Let me see if I can stop the video at the right time. Yeah, right about over there. So a couple of things that we're going to see here, and I'm going to use this pointer to show you. So number one, I know she probably just ate or whatever, but any foods.
So anyway, you get the idea. We don't have to go through the entire me telling them what's going on in their mouth. But this is fantastic because it's just a nice, quick, easy way, whether it's myself or one of my assistants, to just give the patient the information they need right away. And the information or the video, as you saw, I was in that little bubble. I could turn that bubble on or off, right? So if I've already, well, you saw I was in my glasses, so I was getting ready for bed. But if I'm like in my pajamas, I'm keeping that bubble off. Well, depending on which pajamas I'm wearing. Or if you want to keep it on, you turn it on, especially if you're going to kind of move your hands and talk with your hands like I do and show the patient, whatever it is that you need to show. But this way, the scan that they took is running. You can stop it, you can pause it, you can, point to certain things and give them the kind of information they need to. Somebody before in the chat here was asking about different scope sizes. We do have a pediatric size coming to market very, very soon. We've done extensive research. We've had, and I thank if any of those docs that were partaking in that are on the call, thank you so much. We shipped out a whole bunch of different sizes to a lot of different docs, and we really narrowed it down to 2 sizes, the regular size and 1 pediatric size. And so you'll see here, for example, we've got a patient here who's using a pediatric size, and we're able to check on expansion, right? So how many times do you get patients to come in just for a quick expander check? And all we're looking to do is really make sure that the parent isn't turning it forward and backward. We know how often that unfortunately happens, right? And so here we have now a scope size for a very small young child, and we're able to get a scan just like we would in an adult. And this one fits a little bit better. And you can see he's showing off his lower teeth, and there we go. Now we can see the expander. We can see how nicely it has expanded. And now we can make a call. Okay, we've got now a nice separation. The expander has expanded X millimeters, and now we can move forward, right? And so a lot of different functionality that we can use here. I have a lot of doctors that are using this only for aligners. And there's so much value to using this with brackets and wires, expanders, observation, and all of these other pieces to it. What I often talk about is, once you have this deployed across your practice, you now have really an arm into every patient in your practice's home. So imagine for a second, for example, something that we're tossing around in the office. We were talking about it. Honestly, I haven't had the time to implement, but we'll do it probably for the next event. But Father's Day is coming up. Imagine you send an email blast to every single patient in your practice and you say, hey, dads, now it's your turn. If you've ever been considering tooth movement, grab your kid's scope, wash it off, put it in the dishwasher. They are dishwasher safe. And take a scan for us. And in the chat, say, this is Dad's scan. And we'll give you a remote consultation. And for Father's Day, we'll give you X dollars off of treatment. Suddenly, if your practice has, 300 patients, new patients a year, you probably have 600 families in treatment. So imagine you have the ability now to reach into 600 homes and be able to talk to dad or mom or a sibling or whomever, and be able to actually have that automatic connection and sales with them. So just really powerful stuff once this is employed across a practice. Now, just some quick things here. You can see this button that says invite a patient, right? So a new patient, they've just gotten bonded, and we'll talk, through that a little bit. You click invite a patient, you put in their information, and then you click invite. Once you invite the patient, that's when they then get a link and a code so that they can download the app. We have to invite a patient to get the patient on the platform. This is a class 1 medical device, and as such, technically needs to be prescribed by the doctor. And this invitation essentially is the prescription by the doctor. Some other functionalities here, as you can see, this is the patient's card. We've got the name, all of their information. We also have scan frequency, and this is something that is completely flexible. So you can set it to 7, 14, 21, 28, or custom, or pick a specific day that you want that patient to take their next scan. Okay, so if you had a patient that was on the liners, for example, on a weekly cadence, and now they missed a weekend and something wasn't tracking, and you don't want to wait a full week, you say we're 3 days. You just go into that calendar, you click 3 days, you hit save changes, and that patient will be pinged in 3 days in order for that to happen. The same way Jillian was showing you that on a patient side, they can choose to get these notifications via push or app or text or email. Same thing for the doctor's site as well. Some other things is some new bells and whistles is something called labeling. So you'll see here an RM, that's for remote monitoring. We can choose to label this patient. So this patient, for example, is in clear aligners. I can label the patient clear aligners. In fact, I can label the patient something else. So for example, this patient particularly that we're looking at is a hygiene issue patient. So if I want to, I can add a hygiene tag, and then I can search by tags over here if I want to, maybe once a week, have one of my team members take a peek at those hygiene patients. All right, so lots of things, lots of customizable situations here that we can customize. And by the way, I like showing this case only because everybody talks to hygiene with aligners. This patient, this is after we instructed them over and over again how much better they needed to brush through the Grin app. And that's the after they started brushing better. I could probably show you some befores, but this is where, again, I shot them a video. I specifically showed them this is plaque. This is not a tooth that in that area is whiter. This is plaque, and this is what it's doing to the gum line. And that's where the moms are writing back, wow, this has been phenomenal. They're really seeing into the patient's mouth at a completely different level than moms that are just sitting on the, in the waiting room. Lots of things that I could show you. I know we're starting to run short of time, so I'm going to jump back here to the lecture a little bit, or the webinar, just to go through some of these best practices. Okay. One thing that I have found, if I just hand the patient, or my team hands the patient the scope, says this is amazing, download it and do it at home, we have a lot less success that they go home and they actually download it, right? How many times do we give them the care package after bonding? And what do the kids do when they get home? They throw it somewhere in the drawer and it's forgotten about. And so chairside onboarding is key. And this is 5 minutes. So it becomes in our practice part of the OHI. So patient is bonded with either attachments, patient is bonded with brackets and wires, whatever kind, or lingual or whatever. We sit them down in the chair. We go over their OHI, we give them Grin, we go right there into the computer that's sitting chairside, and we invite the patient. Patient pulls out their cell phone or mom's cell phone, they log in. We actually have them take their first scan right there in the practice. This is important because you can show them, aside from the voice talking them through it and the tutorials, but you could say, that was great, but go a little bit farther, or go a little bit deeper, or go a little bit more occlusal, etc. Very, very helpful for the patient. So do all of that chairside, let the patient put in all of their information chairside as well. Some little things to remember is make sure you've got Wi-Fi in your, I'm sure we all do, in your clinical area. And also we keep handy now a phone charger, because every now and again we want to do this, but the patient's like, oh, I'm on like 3%, So this way we have a phone charger, plug it in, and we have the charger, with all of those ends for all various different phones. The other thing that I found every time that we do this in practice is, patient takes that scan, we quickly type back, great job. They, number one, see the scan and they're like, whoa, this is so cool. Then you type in the computer, great job, and ping, their phone gets it right then and there. It's almost like they suddenly make the connection that my phone is now connected to my practice, which has been a really, really powerful thing for patients and moms. So I've been talking for a long time. I'm going to turn it over to Jillian now to talk a little bit about some marketing material, and then of course pricing, etc. And then we're going to go into the Q&A.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Schulhof. Okay. We've got some, just to point out here, some of the resources that we do offer. If you join the Grin Network and you sign up for a subscription, you're going to get full access to our patient and marketing, and onboarding asset library. Tons of great stuff in here, from patient education to digital marketing, everything for email marketing to your Instagram, to your Facebook, and then for chairside onboarding as well. And the pricing. So we've got three very straightforward and simple ways to think about the pricing. Our tiers are Grin Practice Plus, and Grin Enterprise. So for up to 300 active patients per year, you're looking at $199 per month, and that is your monthly subscription fee. No other costs outside of that. The only thing you'd be paying for outside of that is the Grin Scope itself, which I was showing you earlier. The Grin Scope itself, which is $24, and it's 1 Grin Scope per patient. But maybe you fall into the Grin Practice Plus category at around $299 per month for up to 600 active patients. And then if we need to talk about some custom pricing for Grin Enterprise, if maybe you have more than that many patients per month, that's something we can absolutely discuss with you. You can go monthly or yearly. The benefit to going yearly on an annual plan is you do save that 12%, but everything's included in your subscription. So just that fee and then the Grin Scope itself. If you want to move.
I think one thing to point out is the way we think about it, or the way I think about it as an orthodontist, is I'm always like, what is this going to cost me per patient, right? And so when you consider the average patient, the average practice with about 225 new patients a year, we're falling into the $199 a month, $24 per scope, which is essentially $35 per patient. Now that to me was when we sat down and we started thinking about this, it wasn't even about, okay, what are good margins for Grin? It was really about, how are we going to make sure that this is successful across, implementation across an entire practice? At $35 a patient, when the ROI is like, I can almost say 100 times, right? If you think about even one visit saved and you know what your chair time is, and there's going to be a lot more than one visit saved, it starts making sense. When you think about, like in my practice, I used to give every new patient a water pick, and the darn water pick cost me $34.50, and I had no ROI, right? Patients went home, they probably didn't even use them. And once in a while they did use them. And then they came back to me and say, it's broken, I want another one. And I became now the handler of that hardware. This is where, I think that it's key to understand on a per patient basis, it's ultimately a negligible fee, and the ROI is just so strong on that.
Okay, and then for the special offer, so since you've joined live to the webinar today, you do qualify for some special offers here. If you're a new Grin provider that would be signing up for a subscription, you can get 1 month free of your annual subscription. So that can be up to, and then also too, if you are a new or existing customer with any purchase of 20 or more Grin scopes, you're going to get 10 free scopes with that purchase, which is a $240 value. So 2 special offers just for this group here that's on live with us. And if you want to head over to the next slide, and also too, I do want to notate that offer is going to be live through the 25th of June. We've got another webinar coming up with Dr. Colby Gage, and so that will be offered for that as well. So through the end of the month, you'll be receiving an email that's going to recap all of this for you with instructions on how to take advantage. We'll reinforce the offer with everybody, but in the meantime, you can feel free to head over to the website, get-grin.com, and sign up with the plan code for this webinar. Just June webinar. It's case sensitive, so all capital letters, if you'd like to go ahead and do that before the email comes out this afternoon. But I know if you're already signed up with Grin, you've already started to create your account, you can go to our website to finish your account creation. But again, an email is going to come out with all of these instructions to you here shortly. And
great. Thanks, Jillian. So let's get into a little bit of the Q&A now, and couple of different ways we can do this. I know there are some people just asking for demos, things like that. Fantastic. Canadian availability. Okay. Yes. So we are on the last legs of our Canadian availability. We actually got, from a regulatory perspective, clear for Canada a couple of months back. We were all excited about it. And then we found out how many other hurdles there are for Canada. But from a timeline perspective, Jillian, what Canada is what, a couple of weeks, 1 or 2 weeks away? How far are we?
Yes, I would say we're just at about 2 weeks.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Excellent. So yeah, Canada very, very shortly.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions? Feel free to just unmute and go for it.
Hey, Adam. Brian Lockhart here.
Hey,
Quick
Brian.
question for you. How are you? Good presentation, by the way.
Thanks.
One, I talked to someone, I can't remember her name, but we mentioned a like button. So, you know how if I'm texting in my phone and I don't necessarily want to respond something back, but I don't want to leave them hanging, so to speak, you can just pop, you know, a like button, basically saying, hey, listen, I got it. Good, you know, whatever. Because after responding a few times back and forth, sometimes, you know, I just need to hit the like button and then that's that.
End the conversation, right?
Yeah, and that ends it, and they know not to send anything back. The second question, is there a way, and it may be more work than it's worth, but to have some sort of a template for aligners? Because right now, like you mentioned, I have them scan with the aligners in, aligners out, and I also want them to tell me the aligner number that they're on. We have some of them that routinely does, you know, they do it and it's no problem. But then the other ones I have to say, hey, do you have one with the aligners in? And then they send that and I'm like, hey, what aligner number are you on? And I have to kind of go back and forth. But if they're just sort of prompted, you know, to do that, that would make it easy.
You will be happy to know it's coming in a few weeks. All right. And actually, I think it was you that originally prompted us in this direction. And then a number of other doctors said, hey, we want this too. And so all of those things, the team is actually in the process of implementing now and should be in one of the, I think either 1 or 2 rollouts of the software upgrades.
Great.
Awesome. Great stuff. And we love that kind of feedback because it just helps make it better and better. So keep those coming for sure. Great. Oh, good. It's props. I'm just looking in the questions. We got props for our support team. I always love hearing that as well. Thank you. Yes, they try really, really hard to make sure that everybody from doctor to patient has an unbelievable experience. So love hearing the props to that. Why Grin versus smile monitoring, et cetera, briefly. Okay, so probably you mean dental monitoring. So I'll hit the key points. Ease of use, user interface, the fact that we are a company that does not white label to Candid, Quip, and all of the companies that want to put us out of business, and also pricing. From a price perspective, if you look at a per patient basis with some of these other companies, you're talking about hundreds of dollars per patient versus Grin, as I showed you in the average practice, you're looking at $35 a patient. The other piece to this is as we're building this, we don't want to build this to be like a direct to consumer, put your patient on autopilot kind of thing. We want this to add to that relationship between patient and doctor. And so it's this connectivity tool that still adds all of those efficiencies. But that's just some of the highlights. And oh yeah, somebody wrote, made in the USA. And for ortho by ortho, I think that's a big one too, right? I mean, the fact is that we really are here and everything that we've created, like I mentioned earlier, it's not about being just a remote monitoring company. We're going to be adding over the next 12 months, a lot of other cool pieces to this puzzle, all to give us orthodontists, doctors and patients tools to be able to really go toe to toe with the Smile Direct Clubs and the Candids of the world and give patients and consumers what they're looking for, but show them you can get all of those things, but partnered with your local orthodontist. You don't need to go to any of that BS in order to get that. Great. Well, if there are no other questions, I think this is the first webinar I've ever finished on time in the history of me. So I appreciate that. And as Jillian's writing in the chat, if you have any questions, yes, you could write to Jillian at get-grin.com and also to me, Adam at get-grin.com. Nice and easy. Any questions, any comments? We always love helping and looking forward to hopefully at some point in the very near future, seeing all of you face to face. Great. Excellent. So you've got our emails, you've got our contact information, and I thank you all for taking the time on this Friday to share some time with us. Take care.